No voice cracks. I am going to speak like this for the video.
What's up, guys? I don't have a clever intro today, so let's just get into how to protect your hair in the summer. What's up, guys? Trav White here. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, we talk all about grooming, clothing, and confidence in men, and if that interests you, then please hit up that like and subscribe button and join the family. Now, if you're a fellow hair or beard grower, come on over to our Maynard Mains Facebook group and join the family as well. Those guys, they're just awesome. They will help you out when you're struggling with anything hair or beard related. So this video is gonna be 3 parts. Part number 1, protecting your hair from the sun in general. Part 2 is gonna be protecting your hair from chlorine at the pool. And part 3 is protecting your hair from salt water. All right, so let's start with the sun. So the sun emits 3 kinds of light, right? It emits infrared, visible, and ultraviolet light. And only about 3% of the sun's light is ultraviolet, but that's what we're gonna focus on for hair damage. So ultraviolet basically means beyond violet, right? It's anything that's ultraviolet, has a wavelength that's shorter than 380 nanometers, which is how light is measured. And that is shorter than visible light, so it's invisible to the human eye. Humans can see light that falls into the visible range of 380 to 700 nanometers. Anything above 700 nanometers is considered infrared, and anything below is considered ultraviolet. So UV light is then subdivided by wavelength. UVC is shortwave UV, and it measures from about 100 to 280 nanometers. And not very much of this light reaches the Earth's surface because it's absorbed by the atmosphere. UVB is the middle wave UV, and it's measured from about 280 to 315 nanometers. And only about 5% of UV light that reaches the Earth from the sun is UVB, but it can still cause damage. And then we have UVA, and this is long wave UV, and it measures from 315 to 400 nanometers, and about 95% of light that reaches the Earth's surface is UVA light. So according to a 2008 study in the Journal of Collegium Anthropologicum, I think I said that right. Photochemical impairment of hair includes loss of hair proteins as well as degradation of hair pigment. And hair protein degradation was induced by wavelengths of 250 to 400 nanometers. So UVB radiation is responsible for hair protein loss, and UVA radiation is responsible for the color changes. And the absorption of the UV radiation produces free radicals, which create oxidative stress, which has an adverse impact on keratin. So the study also goes on to say that melanin indirectly protects protein because the melanin can partially immobilize free radicals and block their entrance into the keratin matrix. So it absorbs and filters adverse UV radiation. So that's why melanin is actually really important, and it's a direct and indirect protection of hair protein. So if melanin loss occurs, then it leads to more protein loss because melanin works kind of as a shield to fight off those free radicals from attacking keratin. That's how sun can damage your hair. And the last way sun can damage your hair is just through heat damage to the cuticle. So it's similar to how too hot of a blow dryer can damage your cuticle if used incorrectly. Long exposure to the sun can dry out your hair as well. So what can you do to fight this? Well, the first thing is to not stress about it, right? 1 or 2 days in the sun won't cause any lasting damage. This is mainly for people who are exposed to the sun like on a daily basis. And it's for people who love being outdoors all summer long. You know, if you're just going on a day trip on the lake, you're probably gonna be fine. But if you're still concerned, these are my best tips to fight against sun damage. So tip number 1 is the sun is strongest from around 11 a.m. to about 4 p.m. So if you have the option, try going for a sunrise or a sunset day trip or a boat trip or whatever you're doing out in the sun rather than a midday one. But if that's not an option, maybe you have to go like in between that time. Tip number 2 would be to just wear a hat and tie your hair in a low bun. So a cap or a hat with a wider brim is best because you're also protecting your eyes, you're protecting your skin, you're protecting your neck, and this avoids hair exposure to the sun altogether. If you don't want to wear a hat, the last option I would suggest would be a hair sunscreen. So olive oil has been shown to have small SPF protection, but it's only about SPF 8, which won't really protect your hair. It'll probably protect it from like 20 or 30% of UV rays. But the benefit of using a hair oil would actually be to moisturize and protect your hair from drying out. So I would suggest using a hair oil like a coconut oil or an olive oil to moisturize your hair, and then add a sunscreen on top of that for UV protection. And really fast, one quick myth to bust is I've heard people say that putting like coconut oil or olive oil in your hair will cook your hair in the sun. That's not true. You know, the temperatures needed to reach the smoke point of a cooking oil is much, much higher than the temperature outside during the summer. So 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit is not going to cook your hair, and it will actually keep your hair from drying out. Now, when it comes to UV protection, you're gonna need a hair sunscreen that at least has SPF 30. This would be kind of like my last resort tip, simply because some sunscreens can be pretty harsh on your hair. But the one I would recommend is one I found from this company called Kula, and it's about 70% organic, and it has an SPF of 30. Now it's not 100% organic, but it's as close as you can get for a hair sunscreen that's non-damaging. So I'll link to that in the description. Okay, let's move on to chlorine damage and pools. So chlorine damage to hair is a real thing. It can damage the melanin and dry your hair out through cuticle damage as well. There was a 2000 study in the Journal of Dermatology that looked at hair discoloration from 67 elite swimmers of the Japanese national swimming team, and 61% of the swimmers experienced discoloration that was significantly higher than their control group. And of the swimmers with discoloration, they examined some more in depth, and they discovered that a complete disappearance of their hair cuticle existed. So they didn't have a cuticle. So the missing cuticle basically allowed the chlorine acid to penetrate their cortex and annihilate their melanin and annihilate protein and like damage their hair. But again, these are people who swim every single day. And if you're just going on a day trip to the pool, or you're gonna swim for a couple days out of the week, you're probably not gonna lose your cuticle, so don't worry about that. But still, you need to take some steps to protect your hair from chlorine. So step one is your hair is like a sponge. It absorbs water, the cortex swells up. But it's not gonna keep expanding and expanding and expanding. There's a limit to how much your hair can absorb. So wetting your hair with fresh water before getting in the pool is gonna fill up your hair with non-chlorinated water, and is gonna prevent a lot of chlorine from penetrating your cortex. Step number two is to apply like a leave-in conditioner or a heavier oil like a coconut oil before getting in the pool. And this is gonna function as an emollient. And emollients function as a sealant for your hair. They lock in moisture and they lock out whatever is trying to get in. So a fresh water rinse plus a sealant is gonna double your chances of sort of locking out that chlorine. You can look at products marketed for swimming, like there's AquaGuard pre-swim defense that I found for your hair, but looking at the ingredients, it's really just a conditioner with some silicones in it, which, by the way, silicones also function as emollients, and they're really good at sealing your hair as well. They seal out like humidity and they seal in moisture. So they'll do a good job of locking out chlorine too, but they do build up over time, and you'll have to do a clarifying wash to get them out, which is why I just prefer using like heavier oils or creams as emollients. Step number three, and this is optional, but for my guys who are serious, wearing a swim cap after wetting your hair and adding a leave-in, this will add one more layer of protection. And you know, if you don't want to do that, then that's okay. You'll probably be fine with steps 1 and 2, but it's just an extra layer if you want it. If you have already gone swimming and you didn't do any of that, and you think you might have too much chlorine in your hair, don't freak out. Just do a clarifying shampoo wash. And this is the one case where I give you permission to use a sulfate. It's going to get all the chlorine out of your hair, and doing it one time is not gonna damage your hair. Also, if you look at any shampoos that are marketed as a chlorine removal shampoo or a swimmer's shampoo, they just use a strong sulfate to clarify and remove protein. So don't overspend on the marketing. Just go to the drugstore. Most of those shampoos use sulfates as well. Just look for sodium laureth sulfate as the first ingredient after water. And if you want to avoid the sulfate, you can still do a clarifying rinse with apple cider vinegar. It's been shown to remove chlorine as well. Just do 1 part apple cider vinegar, 4 parts water, and it'll remove any of the excess protein, and it can balance the acidity back out in your hair. So let's move on to salt water. This is probably the least damaging. I actually love how my hair feels after a little bit of salt water, which is why sea salt spray is so popular. It gives your hair that textured and disheveled look, kind of that day 2 hair that's not too fresh but not too dirty. But too much salt water does dry your hair out. So if you're surfing for hours, or you're, living on the beach, or you're diving, or you're scuba diving, or you're snorkeling, saltwater damage can happen if there's too much salt water in your hair. So the best thing that I would say here is just to repeat steps 1 and 2 from my pool tips. To wet your hair with fresh water first, and if you don't have access to an outdoor shower or something, then use a bottle of water. And then you can add a moisturizer to your hair as well, like an oil to seal in that moisture, something like an argan oil or a coconut oil, castor oil. Apply it from like mid shaft to ends. And then just go enjoy the beach at your heart's content and don't stress about your hair. You've done enough and now you can just go have fun. And then afterwards, you don't need to do a clarifying wash to get the salt water out of your hair like you would with chlorine. You actually want to use something gentler and more moisturizing because you're not trying to get any chemicals out. You're just trying to rehydrate your hair after it has a lot of salt water in it. So you can use a milder shampoo and a conditioner here. Or if you don't want to use a shampoo at all, maybe you just shampooed a day or two ago, then you can just do a co-wash, which is a cleansing conditioner wash. And by the way, guys, there is a difference between a cleansing conditioner and a regular conditioner. A cleansing conditioner has a very mild detergent stacked on top of it, along with the regular hydrating conditioner ingredients, while a regular conditioner won't have any detergents in them because it's usually paired with a shampoo that has the detergents. So I'll leave links in the descriptions to cleansing conditioners to use as co-washes if you want to do that instead of shampooing. But my favorite gentle shampoo and conditioner is actually from Beard Brand. Their surfactant is sodium lauryl methyl isethionate, and it's on the gentler side. It's not nearly as strong as a sulfate. And if you want something gentle and moisturizing, you can also look at some of the hydrating shampoos on Amazon from Shea Moisture. They have really gentle surfactants as well. And if you guys are curious about which surfactants are stronger than the others, I have a whole other video on that. It's called What's in My Shampoo, and there's a surfactant edition, so I'll link to that. You can go watch everything about surfactants. So finally, one thing to do after swimming at the beach or the pool is not to wait too long to rinse your hair out. You don't want the salt water or the chlorine to kind of just sit in your hair all day. If you don't have access to a shower immediately, then one thing you can do is just rinse out your hair with some fresh water or with water from like a water bottle or something like that, just to kind of get some of that chlorine out or start getting some of that salt water out. Fresh water is the best thing you can do. And that's it, guys. Go enjoy your fun in the sun. Don't worry too much about your hair. Go live your life. That's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.